The wedding may have ended with joy, but not everyone was celebrating. In the shadows, Cynthia watched from afar, bitterness etched into her face. She had lost Maxwell, the billionaire heir she once claimed as hers. Now, she swore revenge. Dennis tried to calm her, saying, "Forget him, sister. There are other rich men." But Cynthia shook her head violently. "No. That girl Mira humiliated me. She took what was mine. I'll make her regret the day she ever met Maxwell." Meanwhile, Mira and Maxwell settled into their quiet life. They had chosen not to live in the mansion, but in a modest Lagos home near the children Mira taught. Grace supported their decision, proud that her son was finally free of material illusions. Still, Grace worried about Cynthia's restless spirit. She had seen that kind of hunger before, and knew it could turn dangerous. That night, Mira leaned against Maxwell. "Do you ever regret testing me with lies?" she asked. Maxwell sighed. "Every day, but I also thank God because the truth eventually gave me you." Mira smiled faintly, but something inside her whispered, "The storm isn't over yet." Grace called Maxwell into her study. "My son, happiness is fragile. You must guard it carefully." Maxwell looked confused. "What do you mean, Mother?" Grace closed her eyes for a moment. "Cynthia, that woman is not done with us. People like her don't vanish quietly." Maxwell frowned. "She has no power anymore." Grace shook her head. "Wealth attracts vultures. Even love attracts envy. Do not underestimate the wounded pride of a rejected woman." At that same hour, Cynthia visited a spiritualist in a dark room lit by a single lamp. "I don't want him back," she lied. "I just want her gone. That teacher girl. She must never enjoy a single day with him." The spiritualist, a gaunt woman with piercing eyes, asked for an item belonging to Mira. Cynthia smirked. "I already have it." From her handbag, she pulled out a scarf she had stolen during the wedding. Back home, Mira felt uneasy in her sleep. She dreamed of fire and shadows chasing her through the compound. When she woke up, Grace was sitting at her bedside. "I felt something tonight," Grace whispered. "Someone is trying to break this union." Mira began to notice strange things. At school, chalk would slip from her hands. Children she taught suddenly fell sick without explanation. At home, mirrors cracked on their own, and food spoiled faster than usual. Maxwell dismissed it as coincidence. "You're stressed," he told her. But Grace knew better. She went to an old church elder she trusted. After prayers, the elder said, "Your family is under attack, but not by bullets or knives, by envy dressed in darkness." One evening, Mira returned home to find her wedding scarf folded neatly on her bed. She froze. She hadn't seen it since the wedding. "Maxwell!" she cried. He rushed in. When he saw it, his face went pale. "This wasn't here before." Mira clutched his arm. "Someone was in here." Grace entered, her eyes blazing. "It has begun. She won't stop until one of you falls." That night, as thunder rolled across Lagos, Grace lit candles and prayed fiercely. Mira knelt beside her, trembling. "I don't understand why anyone would hate me this much." Grace took her hands. "Because your light exposed their darkness." Cynthia wasn't satisfied with spiritual warfare alone. She knew rumors could destroy reputations faster than curses. With Dennis's help, she paid bloggers to spread false stories. "Billionaire's new wife is a gold digger." Mira stole Grace Okon's fortune through blackmail. The articles went viral. Suddenly, paparazzi camped outside Mira's school. Parents began withdrawing their children. Mira wept in Maxwell's arms. "Everything I worked for is ruined." Grace called an emergency press conference. Standing tall before flashing cameras, she declared, "My daughter-in-law is no gold digger. She is richer than any of you. Not in money, but in character. She gave my son what billions could not buy. Peace." Her speech silenced many critics, but not Cynthia. That night, Cynthia raged. She turned the story in her favor. I'll destroy her with my own hands if I must. Dennis hesitated. Sister, this is dangerous, Cynthia snarled. Then stay out of my way. Meanwhile, Mira prayed silently, her voice trembling. God, I don't want their wealth. I just want peace. Why won't they let us be? And in the unseen world, the battle grew fiercer. One rainy evening, Mira didn't return home. Maxwell called her colleagues, checked her school, searched the compound. Nothing. Panic consumed him. Grace clutched her chest. She's been taken. At midnight, a call came. Cynthia's voice was cold. If you want to see your wife again, meet me tomorrow. Alone. Maxwell's heart pounded. Where is she? Cynthia laughed. Safe. For now. But only if you make a choice. Me or her. Maxwell slammed the phone. Mother, I have to go. Grace grabbed his arm. No, my son. If you go in anger, you'll lose both your wife and yourself. We must be wise. Meanwhile, Mira sat blindfolded in a dark room, her hands tied. Cynthia circled her like a predator. So you think you're better than me? Do you know how many nights I stood by Maxwell when you were nowhere? You stole everything. Mira's voice was steady despite her fear. I stole nothing. He never loved you. You can't force love with money. Cynthia slapped her. Shut up. But even in chains, Mira's spirit did not break. Maxwell did not sleep that night. He paced his room like a lion trapped in a cage. Grace sat quietly, her rosary beads slipping through her fingers. Mother, I can't wait. What if she hurts Mira? Maxwell asked, his voice breaking. Grace replied softly. Son, sometimes the lion wins by waiting for dawn, not by charging in the dark. But Maxwell couldn't wait. At dawn, he drove alone to the address Cynthia had sent, an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Lagos. The rain had left puddles reflecting the gray sky. Inside, Cynthia stood with Mira bound to a chair. Mira's face was bruised, but her eyes shone with courage. Cynthia spread her arms. Maxwell, you came. Choose now. Take me back, and she lives. Refuse, and you'll bury her today. Maxwell's fists clenched. Cynthia, listen. What you call love is obsession. You never cared for me. You cared for the empire. Mira gave me life when wealth was a prison. Take my life if you want, but I'll never betray her. For the first time, Cynthia's mask cracked. His words pierced her pride. Mira, though weak, whispered, That's the truth, Cynthia. Money can buy silence, but not love. The warehouse air grew thick. A storm was coming. As Cynthia raised a dangerous object toward Mira, a voice thundered from the doorway. Touch her, and you touch me first. It was Grace, dressed not in luxury but in her plain village wrapper, the same disguise she once used as Mama G. She walked in with steady steps, her eyes unshaken. Cynthia, Grace said firmly, I see myself in you. Once I too thought money could buy loyalty. I too thought I could control the world. But I was wrong. Don't repeat my mistake. Cynthia's hand trembled. Stay back, Mama Okon. You don't know what she took from me. Grace drew closer. What she took. Or what you never truly had. Love cannot be stolen. If Maxwell belonged to you, nothing could take him away. But he never was yours. Mira wept silently as she listened. Maxwell's chest rose with pride. Cynthia's tears mixed with rage. Then what do I have? What do I live for if not him? Grace extended her hand. You live for yourself, child. But not in this darkness. Let him go. Let yourself heal. For a moment, silence filled the warehouse. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Cynthia's grip weakened, and the dangerous object clattered to the floor. She fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. All my life I fought to escape poverty, she cried. When I finally touched wealth, it slipped away. I don't know who I am anymore. Grace knelt beside her, embracing her gently. You are not your failures. You are not your hunger. You are more than envy. if you allow yourself to be. Mira, still tied to the chair, whispered softly, Cynthia, hatred will only chain you deeper. Let love free you, even if it isn't mine. Maxwell quickly untied Mira, holding her close. He kissed her forehead as she winced from her bruises. Cynthia looked up at them, broken. You still choose her, after everything? Maxwell nodded. Not because she's perfect, but because she stayed true when the world tried to change her. Cynthia laughed bitterly, then stood, her body shaking. I can't stay here. I can't face the world after this. She staggered out of the warehouse into the rain, disappearing into the gray horizon. Grace whispered, Pray for her, for even the wicked deserve redemption. But Mira's heart trembled. She knew. This wasn't the last they'd see of Cynthia. Mira spent weeks recovering. Her body healed, but her heart carried scars. At night she often jolted awake, dreaming of Cynthia's dangerous object. Maxwell comforted her, saying, She won't come back. I'll protect you. But Mira shook her head. Love isn't built on protection alone. It must be built on trust, forgiveness, and faith. Otherwise, fear will always win. Grace, too, noticed the changes in Mira. She was quieter, more thoughtful. Sometimes Grace found her sitting alone, staring at the scarf Cynthia had once stolen and returned in cruelty. One evening, Mira approached Grace. Mama, do you think I made a mistake forgiving her? Grace took her hands gently. Forgiveness isn't weakness, my daughter. It's freedom. You freed yourself from her control the day you forgave her. Whether she forgives herself is her journey, not yours. Mira smiled faintly. Then I will pray for her no matter what she did. Grace's eyes softened. That is why I chose you for my son. But outside their peaceful home, whispers spread in Lagos. Cynthia had vanished without a trace. Some said she had left the country. Others said she was gathering strength for her return. The Okon family decided to host a community Thanksgiving. Not in their mansion, but in Mira's schoolyard under the mango tree. Children sang, women cooked jollof rice, and even strangers joined in. Grace stood before the crowd and spoke. Many think wealth is found in gold and houses, but I tell you today, wealth is found in people. Wealth is kindness given freely, love shared without calculation, and forgiveness offered without condition. Maxwell added, We chose to live among you because here, love is real. We are not above you. We are part of you. The crowd cheered. Mira handed out books to her pupils, her smile brighter than it had been in weeks. But as the sun set, Grace's gaze wandered toward the horizon. Her heart stirred with unease. Storms never ended so easily. She whispered to herself, The river that flows quietly can still carry hidden crocodiles. Indeed, far away in a dimly lit hotel room, Cynthia stood before a mirror, her reflection fractured. Her voice was low, but chilling. They think it's over, but they've only seen the beginning. I'll return, and this time, no prayer will save them. The story was far from finished. Weeks passed, and life seemed to return to normal. Mira's school grew again. Parents who once doubted her came back, and even the media began to see her as a symbol of hope. Maxwell threw himself into community projects, helping small businesses rise. But Grace remained unsettled. She often woke at night, her spirit uneasy. One evening she called Mira aside. My daughter, do not be fooled by silence. The crocodile hides under still water, waiting for its prey. Mira nodded but forced a smile. Mama, maybe Cynthia has changed. Maybe she found peace. Grace shook her head slowly. Some wounds do not heal easily. Some hearts turn bitterness into fuel. If she is not healed, she will come back, stronger, darker. Meanwhile, Cynthia had indeed returned. She was in Ghana, hiding under a new name, working with shadowy figures who promised her influence in politics and wealth beyond her imagination. but in exchange they demanded loyalty and vengeance. Standing before them, Cynthia whispered, "I'll bring down Grace, her son, and that little teacher. If it costs me my soul, so be it." The calm was only a disguise. The storm was gathering. One Lagos morning, Maxwell opened the newspaper and froze. On the front page was Cynthia's photo, smiling alongside a powerful senator. The headline read, "Rising star in business and politics, Cynthia Adeniyi returns." Grace's eyes darkened. She didn't vanish. She was reborn. Mira's heart sank. "Mama, what does this mean for us?" Grace replied, "It means she now has power far beyond what she had before, and she will not hesitate to use it." Soon, Cynthia began to make public appearances, launching charities, sponsoring events, and presenting herself as a reformed woman. The world cheered her return, blind to the venom behind her smile. One evening, Mira was invited to a women's conference, only to find Cynthia as the keynote speaker. Their eyes locked across the hall. Cynthia smiled sweetly, but her words carried daggers. Not all women who claim humility are saints. Some wear masks, hiding their ambition behind false kindness. The audience clapped, unaware of the hidden tension. Mira felt a chill run through her spine. Grace whispered to Maxwell later, "This is not just personal anymore. She's building an empire, and we are in her path." Cynthia wasted no time reviving old tricks. She hired journalists to dig up Mira's past. Soon, stories flooded blogs. Mira once dated a married man. Okon family wife fails school inspection. Parents panicked again. Donations to the school dried up. Reporters stalked Mira's every move. At home, Mira broke down. "Why does she hate me this much? I never stole her man. He was never hers." Maxwell held her tightly. "Because you represent everything she couldn't buy: love, trust, respect." Grace, however, refused to let lies go unanswered. She called for a press interview. With calm authority, she declared, "The world sees a billionaire's son and thinks marriage was about money. But when my son lost everything in love, Mira still stood beside him. That is truth. Truth may bend under lies, but it never breaks." Her words trended across Lagos, restoring some trust. Yet Grace knew this was just a small victory. Cynthia had money, politics, and growing followers. Lies could be repeated until they felt like truth. And somewhere in Cynthia's office she smirked. "You may win small battles, Grace, but the tension will end in ashes." The pressure became unbearable. Mira's school faced another closure threat after inspectors, bribed by Cynthia, failed it on false reports. Parents whispered behind her back. Even her closest friends distanced themselves. One evening, Mira packed her bag. Maxwell found her sitting at the edge of their bed. "Where are you going?" he asked, panic rising. Mira's eyes were red. "Away. I can't be the reason your family keeps suffering. Grace warned us. Maybe I should have never entered your life." Maxwell knelt before her. "Don't say that. You are not the problem, she is. If you leave, she wins." Grace entered quietly, overhearing everything. She walked over and touched Mira's shoulders. "My daughter, you forget. I was the one who tested you. You passed when you had every reason to fail. Do you think I would now let you run because of another woman's envy?" Mira broke into tears, holding Grace tightly. "But Mama, I'm tired." Grace whispered, "Strength isn't found when things are easy. It's revealed when storms refuse to end." That night, Mira stayed. But in her heart, the battle drained her spirit. On Mira's birthday, a surprise package arrived at the gate. A large bouquet of roses wrapped in gold, with a card. "To the woman who stole everything. A friend." Grace frowned. "Don't touch it. Something feels wrong." But Maxwell brushed it off, thinking it was just intimidation. He placed the bouquet in the living room. Within hours, Mira began coughing violently. Her skin grew pale. Grace rushed her to the hospital, screaming, "Doctor, save my daughter." Tests revealed she had ingested toxic substance from inhaling the rose's scent. Mira lay unconscious, machines beeping beside her. Maxwell collapsed in grief. I should have listened. I should have thrown it away. Grace stood over Mira's bed, eyes blazing. This is no longer a battle of words. It is tension. And if Cynthia thinks she can bury my daughter-in-law, she will learn that a mother's spirit never dies quietly. Outside the hospital, Cynthia watched from her car, sipping wine. Happy birthday, Mira. This is only the beginning. The storm had grown darker. For days, Mira hovered between life and death. Maxwell refused to leave her side, sleeping in a chair by her bed. Grace gathered church elders to pray through the night. At 3 a.m., Mira's heart monitor flatlined for a moment. Nurses rushed in. Maxwell screamed, "No, don't take her from me." Grace fell to her knees, weeping. God, you know I tested her heart. You know she passed. Do not let this child suffer for my pride. Suddenly, Mira gasped, and her heartbeat returned. Slowly, she opened her eyes. Maxwell. Mama, she whispered weakly. Tears flowed as they embraced her fragile body. Grace whispered in her ear, You will live, my daughter, because your light is needed in this dark world. But even as relief filled the room, Grace's spirit warned her. Cynthia had crossed into bloodshed. There would be no turning back. Watching Mira suffer ignited something fierce in Maxwell. He told Grace, I've been silent too long. It's time I fight back. Grace cautioned him. Son, if you fight with her weapons, lies, jealous, envy, you will become like her. Fight differently. Fight with truth. Maxwell nodded, but his anger still burned. He used his influence to call a press meeting. Standing tall before cameras, he declared, My wife was ingested with toxic substance, and though I cannot name names yet, know this, the truth will come out. To those who think power can silence justice, remember, the Okon family did not build its name on wealth alone, but on resilience. His words went viral. Nigerians began questioning Cynthia's sudden rise. Hashtags trended. Justice for Mira. Cynthia watched on TV and laughed bitterly. You think words will save you? I hold politicians, police, even businessmen in my pocket. You are nothing without me. But in Lagos streets, ordinary people began whispering differently. For the first time, Cynthia's mask started to crack. Humiliated by the growing sympathy for Mira, Cynthia struck back harder. She bribed an officer to arrest Maxwell on false charges of money laundering. The news spread like wildfire. Billionaire CEO behind bars. Mira, still weak, cried as she watched Maxwell dragged in handcuffs. Grace stormed to the police station. Release my son. These lies will not stand. But the officers smirked. Orders from above, Mama Okon. Cynthia celebrated privately, raising a glass. Now, with him disgraced and her broken, Grace will finally kneel. But Grace did not kneel. She rallied community leaders, pastors, market women, and youths. They marched to the station chanting, Free Maxwell, we know the truth. Under pressure, the officers released Maxwell days later. Outside the station, Grace hugged her son. You see, wealth may buy law, but it cannot buy the people's voice. Still, Cynthia's power grew. Her enemies increased, but so did her reach. The tension was now public. That night, Grace called a family meeting. Her eyes were firm. We cannot win this with money or power. We must win with faith, unity, and patience. Maxwell clenched his fists. But how long, Mama? How long must we suffer before God answers? Grace placed her hand on his. God answers when the test is complete. Mira's test was love. Yours is endurance. Mira added softly. And Cynthia's test is pride. If she fails, she will destroy herself. They held hands and prayed together. Mira whispered, Lord, protect us not from storms, but through them. Unseen to them, Cynthia's own world began to crumble. Her allies in politics began questioning her obsession with the Okons. You're drawing too much attention, one warned, But Cynthia snapped. Without their fall, I am nothing. Her hunger grew into madness. Grace visited an old prophet in Ibadan, desperate for answers. The prophet, a frail man with white hair, listened quietly. Then he spoke. The woman you fear is like a tree planted in poisoned soil. She may grow tall, but her roots will eat her alive. Do not strike her down. She will fall by her own weight. Grace asked, but when? How many more wounds must we endure? The prophet replied, the storm will end when her pride consumes her. Until then, stand firm. Protect your children. Their love is the shield. Back in Lagos, Cynthia stood on a stage at a political rally declaring, I will rebuild this nation. With me, wealth will flow like rivers. The crowd cheered, but behind her smile, her eyes burned with hatred for the Okons. Grace returned home, holding Mira's hand. The prophet says she will destroy herself, but until that day, we must endure. The family braced themselves. The storm had not peaked yet. Cynthia's fame soared, but so did whispers about her cruelty. Rumors of bribery, backdoor deals, and blackmail followed her, yet she laughed them off. At home, Mira struggled to regain her full health. Some nights she still woke coughing, clutching her chest. Maxwell never left her side, bringing her warm water and whispering, You are my strength. Don't let her take that from you. Grace remained restless. The tree looks strong, she told her son, but the termites inside it will make it fall. One evening, Cynthia's closest advisor confronted her. You've gained power, but you're losing allies. This obsession with the Okons will be your undoing. Cynthia slapped the table. Without their destruction, my victory is incomplete. Don't you see? They are my shadow. But in the quiet corners of Lagos, journalists, pastors, and citizens began asking dangerous questions. Who funded Cynthia? Why did scandals follow her? The tide was beginning to shift, though Cynthia couldn't see it. Pride blinded her, and vengeance consumed her. One afternoon, Mira received an elegant white envelope delivered to her school. Inside, embossed in gold, were the words, You are cordially invited to the Women of Power Gala, hosted by Cynthia Adeniyi. Grace frowned deeply. This is not an invitation, it's a trap. Maxwell burned with anger. She's mocking us. After my wife ingested toxic substance from her gift, she dares invite her to a gala? But Mira, surprising them both, said calmly, I will go. Grace gasped. Why? Because running makes her stronger. Facing her steals her power. Mira replied softly. On the night of the gala, Mira entered wearing a simple but elegant Ankara gown. All eyes turned. Cynthia, dressed in glittering diamonds, welcomed her with a fake smile. Ah, the humble teacher who captured a billionaire. How poetic. But Mira didn't flinch. It is not poetry, Cynthia. It is truth. And truth will always stand taller than lies. The crowd murmured. For the first time, Cynthia's flawless image cracked in public. The gala was meant to crown Cynthia as Lagos's new queen of influence. But Mira's presence shifted the energy. During her speech, Cynthia boasted, I rebuilt myself from nothing. Unlike others who hide behind borrowed wealth, I am my own creation. Mira stood from her table. Her voice was calm but firm. True greatness is not measured by what you take, but by what you give. You climb ladders on broken backs, Cynthia. But remember, broken backs eventually rise. Gasps filled the hall. Cynthia's eyes blazed. Sit down, girl, before I remind this crowd who you really are. But Mira replied, Remind them of what? That I was poor? That I struggled? That I loved when it was costly? If that is my crime, then I stand guilty. The audience erupted in applause. Cynthia smiled through clenched teeth, but her hands trembled. She could not control the crowd anymore. Grace whispered to Maxwell, The battle is turning. Slowly, her own mouth will destroy her. Behind Cynthia's glittering empire, cracks widened. Her financial backers grew nervous. Deals delayed. Journalists leaked documents hinting at corruption. One of her advisors, tired of her obsession with the Okons, secretly met with Maxwell. She is planning something big, something final. Watch your steps, Maxwell reported to Grace, who sighed. I knew. The more desperate the snake, the deadlier its bite before it passed away. Meanwhile, Mira returned to her school and found her students frightened. One child whispered, Auntie, men came asking about you. Mira hugged them tightly, hiding her fear. That night, Mira prayed alone. Lord, if this storm is my test, give me courage not to hate her back. Far away, Cynthia poured herself a glass of champagne, staring at the city lights. If they won't kneel willingly, then I'll break them. All of them. Her empire was now fueled less by ambition and more by obsession. An obsession never ends well. Cynthia invited Grace and Maxwell to Abuja under the guise of a charity partnership. Reluctantly, they went, hoping to protect Mira by staying visible. The hotel lobby glittered with luxury, but Grace's spirit stirred uneasily. This place smells of danger, she muttered. That night, masked men stormed their suite, dragging Maxwell away. Grace fought, but was overpowered. Cynthia appeared hours later, standing over a bound Maxwell. You should have chosen me, Maxwell. You embarrassed me, ruined me. But tonight I reclaim my dignity. Maxwell spat. Dignity? You lost that the day you sold your soul for wealth. Cynthia raised a pistol, her hands shaking. If I can't have you, then no one will. But Grace's voice pierced the room. Cynthia, put it down. You don't need to destroy him. You're already destroying yourself. For a brief second, Cynthia's eyes flickered with doubt. But pride won. No. If I fall, they fall with me. The trap was set, and visible injuries could spill at any moment. Back in Lagos, Mira sensed something was wrong. Despite her frailty, she boarded a night bus to Abuja, whispering prayers the entire journey. At dawn, she arrived at the hotel. The guards tried to stop her, but she pushed through. Inside, she found Maxwell tied to a chair, Cynthia holding an armed object. Grace stood in front of him, shielding him with her body. Mira! Maxwell shouted. Cynthia smirked. How touching. The teacher who won the billionaire, but you're too late. Mira stepped forward, trembling but fearless. If you want life, take mine. But know this, even if you take my life, you'll never take what I gave him. My love is not flesh, it's spirit. And spirits don't pass away. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Cynthia's hand shook violently. Tears brimmed in her eyes, but her pride refused to let go. Grace whispered softly, Child, drop the weapon. Don't let evil finish the work of envy. Cynthia screamed, torn between pride and collapse. Suddenly the weapon fired. The sound shattered the air. Grace gasped. Maxwell roared. Mira froze. But when the smoke cleared, the bullet had struck the chandelier above, shattering it into 1,000 crystals that rained down. Cynthia dropped the weapon, her hands trembling uncontrollably. I didn't mean... I just wanted them to see me, she cried. Police stormed the room, tipped off by Cynthia's own advisor, who had finally betrayed her. They seized her arms as she struggled. No, let me go. They'll never love me if I fall, Grace whispered sorrowfully. Pride always writes its own funeral. As Cynthia was dragged away, her screams echoed in the hall. This isn't over. You'll all regret this. But deep down, even she knew, her empire was crumbling. Weeks later, Cynthia stood trial. Evidence of bribery and corruption filled the courtroom. Her once powerful allies turned witnesses against her. The judge declared, Cynthia Adeniyi, you are sentenced to 25 years in prison. Gasps filled the court. Cynthia broke down, her voice hollow. 25 years. Wasted on vengeance. Grace closed her eyes and prayed silently. Mira wept, not out of victory but sorrow. Maxwell held her hand tightly. It's over, he whispered. But Grace corrected him. No, It is never over. We must learn from this storm, or it will return in another form. As Cynthia was led away, she whispered one last time, "I only wanted to be loved." Even her enemies felt the weight of those words. With Cynthia gone, peace slowly returned. Mira's school reopened with even greater support. Parents, once skeptical, now admired her strength. Donations poured in from across Nigeria. Maxwell launched a foundation to support women like Mira, women who rose from poverty with dignity. Grace spent more time in prayer, her health visibly declining but her spirit strong. One evening, Mira asked Grace, "Mama, do you regret pretending to be poor?" Grace smiled faintly. "If I had not, my son would be married to wealth, not love, and you would never be here to heal us." Mira rested her head on Grace's lap. "Then all the pain was worth it." Grace nodded. "Pain refines gold, and today, you are our gold." The storm had passed, but its lessons remained engraved in their souls. Years later, the story of Grace, Maxwell, Mira, and Cynthia became a parable told in Lagos and beyond. Children learned it in schools. Pastors preached it on pulpits. Mothers whispered it to daughters. The moral was clear. Wealth without love is emptiness. Pride without humility is destruction. But love rooted in truth survives every storm. Grace, before her passing, gathered Mira and Maxwell and said, "Remember, storms will always come, but when you stand in love, you will not drown. Teach this to your children, and they will stand taller than we ever did." Maxwell and Mira lived by her words, raising their children not in mansions, but in faith, humility, and service. And somewhere behind prison walls, Cynthia sat alone, staring at the ceiling. Her empire gone, her beauty fading, she whispered into the silence, "If only I had chosen love over pride." Thus ended the storm. But the lesson lived forever. Dear viewers, you just heard a story that carries a powerful lesson, one that could change someone's life, open a mind, or heal a heart. But if you walk away without liking, sharing, or subscribing, it's like silencing the voice of our ancestors who passed down these tales. Don't let their wisdom fade. Don't be the reason the next person never hears this message. Like, share, subscribe. Let the story live on. Thank you for watching.